Hello everyone! Today we're going to take a look at a tense little film from 1943, directed by John Harlow, The Dark Tower, in which a struggling circus adds a hypnotist to their high wire act, but the hypnotist might have his own objectives. The film credits Ben Lyon, Anne Crawford, and David Farrar as its three leads, but I would argue that Herbert Lom is the real star of the show. I'm not just saying that because he happens to be one of my favorite actors, although that might be a factor, yes. Herbert Lom plays Stephen Torg, the mysterious drifter who shows up looking for work. At first he's turned away, as the circus is currently more interested in cutting employees than adding them, but he catches everyone's attention when he calms a lion that's broken loose. Torg reveals he's a hypnotist, able to exert tremendous power over not just animals, but people too, using his eyes and his voice as well as a tiny mirror to mesmerize. I can only speak for myself, but I find Lom's performance quite captivating. I've got actors who I like because I enjoy their work, and I feel like they always do a good job, so their name showing up in the opening credits is an assurance of at least one solid performance. And I've got actors who I like for those reasons, but also because I find them really attractive. Actors like Ronald Colman, Tyrone Power, Paul Henreid, Herbert Lom. Obviously, one of these guys is not like the other. Herbert Lom was never a matinee idol, never really a leading man, and I dare say most people don't find him attractive. But I do! It doesn't matter if he's playing a good guy, a bad guy, a funny guy, a scary guy, I always like him. The Dark Tower was fairly early in his long, varied career, one of his first English-language films, and it's a great part for him, magnetic and menacing. That's why it's gotta have a place on my list of best Herbert Lom movies. Anyway, back to the story. Amazed by the money-making potential of Torg's talent, the circus takes him in, pairing him up with a pair of aerialists, Mary and Tom, played by Anne Crawford and David Farrar. There is immediate friction between Torg and Tom, whose partnership with Mary is more than just professional. Because the act is so dangerous, Tom is against the whole thing, and I don't blame him. It consists of Mary sliding down a wire under hypnosis, relying only on Torg for balance control. Yikes, I'm not even good at balancing on something that's 1 foot off the ground, so this is just nuts to me. As Torg becomes more demanding and his power over Mary grows, the situation becomes more alarming. The humble tramp isn't so humble as he seemed at first, and now he appears to have a sinister purpose. You know, I've seen this film a couple times before, and it occurred to me this last time that perhaps Torg set the whole thing up. He comes to everyone's rescue by taming this lion, and that gets him the job with the circus that he'd wanted, that he'd been turned down for. So, who's to say that he didn't go and set the lion loose, knowing he could calm it? But I also find myself wondering as I watch the film, is he really that sinister, or is he just more direct than your average person in the way he goes after what he wants? In spite of everything, and I'm not going to spoil the film in case you want to watch it after seeing this review, you do sympathize with Torg to a point. The circus people distrust him, but perhaps they're prejudiced against him because he's different, he's a stranger, he's poor, he's of vague European origin. Torg himself explains in one scene that he treats people dismissively because of the way he's been treated all his life. His negative experience cultivated a desire to get the upper hand and control people, to get back at them. So it's one of those situations where it's like, oh, I feel bad for you, but I'm not okay with what you're doing. Compassion can only go so far when the victim becomes a villain and the bullied becomes a bully. This film is a Warner Brothers first national production, made in the UK, and featuring a mostly English cast, with the exception of Herbert Lom, who was Czech, though he became a British citizen in 1939, and American Ben Lyon. The script makes no secret that it's a take on the Svengali story. One character actually refers to Trilby, the 1894 George du Maurier novel, which introduced Svengali, the powerful hypnotist who controls a young singer and makes her a star. Technically speaking, The Dark Tower is based on a play written by George S. Kaufman and Alexander Woollcott. However, from what I hear, that play was more faithfully adapted into the 1934 film The Man with Two Faces, which stars Edward G. Robinson, another favorite of mine, and Mary Astor, and is also a good movie. While this film, The Dark Tower, uses the play's title and its main subject of a hypnotist and his victim, I think it changes pretty much everything else. Certainly, the circus setting is totally different, so I'd hardly call it a remake. One fun bit of trivia, which might be of interest to classic horror film buffs, Terence Fisher is credited as this film's editor. That's the same Terence Fisher who later would go on to be known as the director of so many Hammer horror films of the 50s and 60s. In addition to the hypnotism plot, The Dark Tower gives the viewer a taste of all the spectacle associated with the circus. We get to see portions of the show, including a clown's parody of a high wire act, and a figure skating act featuring lifts that would definitely not be allowed in the Olympics. There's also some levity thrown in on the side with a henpecked ringmaster and his wife, and a sailor animatronic with an infectious laugh that I think is supposed to be funny, and maybe it would be if it weren't kinda creepy. Speaking of creepy, I understand some people are going to be turned off by the clowns, but as clowns go, these are harmless and goofy and not scary at all. What I find much more alarming in the film is the tension of the final high wire performance when Torg ups the ante on Mary's act. I'm sure what we're seeing is some kind of movie magic optical illusion, but just the idea of what she's doing gives me the heebie-jeebies. I enjoy this film. I think it's a little spooky, a little thrilling, and fun, and definitely worth checking out for Herbert Lom's performance. Not that I'm biased or anything. If you'd like to see The Dark Tower, it is currently available to stream on the Watch TCM app until May 29th. I believe it is also currently up on YouTube, but you didn't hear it from me. I hope you enjoyed this review and didn't mind a little Herbert Lom fangirling. That's basically why I wanted to review this movie, so that I could talk about Herbert Lom, who I feel has been sadly neglected on this channel. This isn't a super well-known movie, so it wouldn't surprise me if many of you have not heard of it, but I'd like to hear your thoughts on it if you have seen it, or if you go watch it, feel free to come back and leave your thoughts on it in the comments below. I look forward to hearing them, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching!